All right. What would the weekend be without a review, a quick review of TNA Impact Wrestling? Last night on Friday nights on Destination America. Next week they move to Wednesday, and they'll be aired at 9 o'clock right after Ring of Honor, only on Destination America. Last night, Mayhem took place. Not that bad of a show, I must say. It pretty much started off with a Knockouts Championship match, 6 sides of steel. And it was Terrell, the Knockouts champion, going up against a very formidable opponent in Gail Kim in the 6 sides of steel. What can I tell you about this match? This was a brutal match, and we've seen a real brutal side lately of Terrell, especially since she has joined the Dollhouse with Jade and Marty Bell. Gail Kim started off with a very, very offensive onslaught. It just continued and continued. It was great. Jade was there where the camera hole is in the cage. She distracted Gail long enough for Taryn to connect with a clubbing blow from behind. Taryn then shifts the momentum as she sends Gail crashing into the cage. She rakes Gail's face across the steel, the unforgiving steel, we should say, as Jade and Marty Bell reached in for a handful of Gail's hair, pulling her face harder against the steel. Taryn focused more on Gail's attack. She was slamming her arm repeatedly against the cage post, and it just was a furious match. But Gail came back in a little bit of a way. She countered a bunch of attempts. She countered the Taryn cutter the first time around, and both women fell after they gave each other a double clothesline. They reached to their feet, traded blows again until Gail furiously unloads a series of clotheslines followed by a knee breaker and a flying crossbody. Gail began her ascent again towards the top of the cage, where she's met by Jade and Marty Bell. Marty Bell sends Gail crashing back to the mat. Taryn connects with the Taryn cutter for a 3 count to retain her title. But this wasn't the worst of this match, because after the match, it just continued on. They kept Gail Kim in the ring. You heard Awesome Kong's music, so they locked the cage. Kong is trying to get into the cage, and in the meantime, Terrell took off the ring of Gail Kim, and they repeatedly stomped on her hand. And after it was all said and done, Taryn was screaming to Gail, "Put it back on your finger now, Gail." A great opening match for 6 sides of steel. Then we had Mickie James' music hit, Hardcore Country. Mickie James, she came out with an ovation saying she was going to have one more match. And she was talking about her focus between her fiancé Magnus, her child, and she was also bringing up the fact that she was torn also between her best friend, James Storm. Well, James Storm came out, and he tried to offer an apology, and it was about what he did when he brought the gifts and whatnot, and it was just sort of like a sarcastic type apology. But anyhow, James was talking about Magnus, and Gail interrupted and said she defended Magnus by claiming he was only doing the right thing to protect her and whatnot. And Storm is basically telling Gail that he's been getting a hold of people in Nashville like Carrie Underwood and others, and he said at that point, she should really value what he's trying to do for her. Mickie looked conflicted, and no matter what she decides, James told her he was there for her. He hugs her, leaves the ring. Mickie calls out to Storm, "Tell him I'll see him in Nashville." Storm smiles and leaves. So that was pretty cool as well. Then we had the gauntlet match for the X Division title. Manic versus Rockstar. Spud versus DJZ versus Mandrews versus Argos versus Crazy Steve versus Tigre Uno and versus Kenny King, the X Division champion. This was a pretty good match. Manic entered first, and obviously this is a gauntlet match. So the two men that started off in this match, was pretty interesting. But anyway, we had Rockstar Spud in there coming in, and we saw DJZ come in. Manic. We had everybody in the ring. Let's put it that way. And it was a pretty good match, and it came down to Kenny King, the X Division champion, and Rockstar Spud. Who would have thought? Who would have thought? Because with all the other talent in that ring, I didn't expect Rockstar Spud to be in with Kenny King. I figured King was going to be in there last because he is the champion. I didn't think he was going to get eliminated early, but I didn't think it was going to be Rockstar Spud. I thought maybe it might be somebody like Tigre Uno, but it wasn't to be. And the let's go Spud chants, were going on and stuff. And towards the end, Christy announced that the match is now scheduled for one fall. Kenny King unleashed a furious assault as the crowd chanted, "Let's go Spud." Kenny King landed a stiff kick to the ribs. Then he hoisted Spud onto his shoulders, but Spud rolls through for a surprise 3 count to become the new X Division champion. Totally shocked me, believe me. It did, but it was pretty good. Okay, round 2, the best of 5 series, the Wolves versus the Dirty Heels, Aries and Bobby Roode. Again, I'm not sure where this is leading to. I figure this is going to go 5 matches. This was a pretty good match, again, between these two tag teams. And I'm just going to get to the finish where the Wolves ended up getting the win. Eddie Edwards makes the pin. And now they're ahead 2 matches to none. So this is surprising to me because I thought it was going to go teeter back and forth. But a pretty good match overall. Then we saw Angelina Love backstage talking about how she's going to handle Velvet Sky. They now call Velvet Sky Darth Velvet. So anyway, Angelina Love confronted Velvet Sky, or Darth Velvet, I should say, who's standing behind the barricade with the fans. Angelina says Velvet is where she belongs with the other losers. She says she'll deal with Velvet by using her friends. She brings out a group of men hired to be Love's security. Angelina gets in Velvet's face to say she'll be hauled away if she touches her again. She says Velvet no longer works in TNA because she was fired, and she called her a freak. Angelina taunted her former best friend, I should say. And then when Angelina turned her back, Velvet jumped the guardrail and attacked Love's security. Separates the two of them, but Velvet attacks the 2 guards and goes after Angelina once again. Finally, Angelina's security team is able to take control by handcuffing Velvet Sky. So that was sort of interesting. Then we had backstage Mr. Anderson. He had a cage for Tyrus. The match was EC3 with Tyrus versus Mr. Anderson. EC3 said despite what Mr. Anderson thinks, Tyrus will not be held in a cage. Then he plugs EC3 for champ. So the bell sounds, and of course Anderson attacked Tyrus. Instead of going up against EC3 at that point, the battle went back and forth. But EC3 attempted the 1%er. Mr. Anderson rolls through into a Green Bay plunge, and then he connects with a swanton. EC3 is out on a 2 count. He counters a mic check from Anderson, but second mic check connects for a very near fall. EC3 then turns another mic check attempt into a 1%er and got the victory. So EC3, the winner. After the match, Mr. Anderson tried to extend his hand to EC3, but he slapped it away. So, pretty good match there, though. Anyway, Rockstar Spud afterwards was saying, how he now cemented his legacy in the X division because he's now won it twice. Good for Rockstar Spud. Then we have the I Quit match for the TNA World Heavyweight Championship match. Our champion Kurt Angle against the challenger Eric Young. This was a pretty good match. It was another typical Kurt Angle, Eric Young type match. And, pretty much the same things we've seen in the previous matches went on. But Eric Young eventually was trying to get Kurt Angle to quit by working on his neck. Kurt Angle got out of that, got him on the ankle lock, was sitting on his leg, and he was fiercely, putting pressure on that ankle until finally Eric Young decided to say, I quit. So not a bad show for Mayhem by TNA. And I've said this before and I'll say it again. TNA continues regardless of anything that goes on in the media, on the news sources, all these websites. TNA still continues to put on a very good TNA Impact Wrestling. So there you have it. Mayhem, my thoughts, my opinions. Peace out, everybody. Enjoy your Saturday.